Yeah, thanks a lot, everyone, for being here. It's great to talk about this topic. I'm going to talk quite quickly about the overview. I will say what this 18e siècle bibliography, what it is, in what sense I used an open science approach to deal with this data, how I converted the data, then a little bit of what is really in that data set or in that bibliography. Just as an overview, I will look a little bit into patterns of collaboration that you can see in this data set, and we'll address some limitations and next steps. So what is this 18e siècle bibliographie? On the right, you see one livraison, so one monthly installment, just the start of it. So it's a bibliography published by Canadian scholar Benoit Melançon, and it covers research on the 18th century. A lot of literature, but also culture and politics and history. And it appears, as I said, in monthly installments since 1992. And now it includes 72,000 references. So it has grown quite a bit over time. And in early 2023, Benoit Melançon published all of the data up to then as one big CSV file. And this is basically what got me started. I thought, okay, this is interesting. This could be interesting, and I want to analyze this, and that launched the whole thing in a way. You find the links to a little blog post he wrote at the time and to the data set at the bottom there. Yeah, so how did I go about this? I thought, okay, open science is just science done right. So let's try and do that. And in a way, the data set is interesting, and I just wanted to play with it and thought this is a good test case for what can you do if you really try to make it as open as possible. Otherwise, the whole thing is not super exciting, methodologically, let's say. And also I thought, okay, making the data freely available is nice, but it's really only going halfway if you are not using standard formats. And I can tell you that CSV was not in any kind of standard format. And the goals don't justify the means. So we want to provide standardized, open, accessible data. So we should also use open, standardized, accessible tools to do it. Anyways, yes. So how is this open science? All of it, the data, the code, the visuals are available in the GitHub repository. I only used open source software. I'll also try to stick to something you could call open process. So only used algorithmic approaches, no point and click, that are not reproducible. Although I have to say I had to also spend quite a bit of time on manual corrections. And those, of course, are not reproducible in the same way either. But the original set and the corrected set are both available in the repository. So if you really want to know all the details, you could even do that. And it's open access in the sense that everything is published using Jupyter Notebooks in Quark. So there's a website that shows all the analysis and all the data, the code that you can look at as well. So you don't need to go to the repository necessarily. And to be honest, that was just a fun experiment. So data conversion. What are the data formats involved? And that's quite a bit of a story. So Benoit Melançon used quite a different processing pipeline in a way. So there's an entry for data via a web form. And that's also interesting because this is not actively curated, systematically collected bibliography, but it's primarily created through user submissions. So if you have an article on the 18th century and you think it should be in your bibliography, you can go there and enter your publication. So it's sort of self-curated by the community. But of course, there's also a self-selection mechanism. If you know the bibliography, you may add your publication. If you don't know it, you will not add it. If you forget about it, it won't be in there, etc. So this is an interesting approach. The whole thing is then managed in a FileMaker database that was set up, I suppose, in 1992 and has been running ever since. So why change a running system? And then there are these monthly exports to HTML for the web display, and there's a search of the whole site as well. So you can search in all of them, but you can't really, download it. And on the web, it's not structured data. But then came this CSV export, and that's what I took. That's where I started my work. So I converted the CSV to BibTeX using Python so that I could import it into Zotero. And the main challenge was really that there are all kinds of different publication formats, of course. The data in this table is a bit, you have to get to know it. Let's put it that way. Yes, thank you. And author names are difficult to separate correctly because they don't have, there are no separate columns for first names, last names of first author, third author, second author, third author, etc. So I had to do quite a bit of manual and semi-automatic corrections, and now it's available in Zotero, and I can export all kinds of formats. Among them, XML RDF, which is what I used for the analysis that I was shown. Yeah, just a quick overview of some of the features of this data. You can see here the number of entries per year. So it grows in sort of waves or steps, phases. It is now at about 3,000 entries per year. There are different types of publications in there. Of course, a lot of journal articles, but also a lot of books. Although these books are edited volumes and also scholarly editions, which Zotero doesn't really differentiate. There are book sections, so chapters, theses, and datasets and web pages. There are actually more, and that is not properly cleaned up yet, I think. There are some most active authors, but we can skip that. And the languages are interesting as well. Mostly French, about 70%, 20% English more or less, and then the rest is different languages that are shown here. And this is also, this shows a difference to the, if you search in the MLA, International Bibliography for 18th century, you have more data, about twice as much for the same period, but 80% of it is in English and only 10% is in French. So these don't overlap, only overlap partially. So they are actually complementary. And if you want to get a full picture of publications on the 18th century, I think you need to look at both. We can skip those. Well, here, this is still a little bit interesting, although there are no surprises here. The only surprise is maybe that Rousseau and Diderot are ranked higher than Voltaire. In some other research, Voltaire has been shown to be quite dominant, but that's when you look at the full text corpora of the 18th century, Voltaire was just incredibly productive. So to the last point is really the patterns of collaboration. One aspect is co-authorship. And the interesting part here is that this community publishes or writes research, basically everybody on their own. One author is the norm, sometimes two, and then the 3 and 4, they do exist, but you can't even see them. And this results in a network visualization that has these like islands, tiny little collaboration sub-networks, but not really connected. Whereas for editorship, so for edited volumes, it is absolutely normal to have 2 editors, 3 editors, even 4 editors, or even more. I think the most was 11, but it's not shown here. And the corresponding networks, of course, look very different. And by the way, if you click on these in the presentation, it takes you to the website where these are interactive visualizations, so you can zoom in and see the names and all of that. The only thing I want to mention is that it's interesting to see that there are these circular patterns. So one editor working with a lot of different other editors here in the center. And there are also these patterns where there are 3 or 4 editors that apparently work together again and again. So there are these sort of little mafias controlling part of the publishing or of the editorship space. Yeah, and the limitations, and that's basically also my conclusion. There are lots of limitations actually. So first of all, this data curation process could lead to all kinds of self-selective curation biases and stuff like that. The data model has some problems as well. It's mostly at the moment influenced by what Zotero can do. For example, there's no relationship of edited volume to essay in edited volume that is a part of relationship. So you have multiple, each chapter has its own, edited volume with the editors and all of that. And that obviously could affect the editor data. There's no explicit modeling distinction between monograph, edited volume, and scholarly edition, because they are all books in Zotero, and there's additional differentiation needed with some workarounds. We don't have gender information. What also happened, I thought I transformed it to Zotero and then I can clean it up there, but 64 items actually slows down Zotero quite a bit. and it becomes unwieldy to do corrections there because it's just you have to wait like a second or two every time you make a little change. Then there are, of course, problems with data quality, some duplicates, the question of languages, there are no abstracts. So there's still a lot to do, but it's a fun data set, and I hope to continue to work on it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for this interesting presentation. And is there any question in the room?